Do you feel like retirement is sneaking up on you? How to make critical retirement decisions in a hurry right now on Retiring Today. I'm Molly Nelson here with Lauren Merkel and Haley Gutchenrider. They're both certified financial planners. Lauren is also a retirement income certified professional and a certified financial fiduciary. You guys, you sit down with people every day, and sometimes they've been dreaming about retirement. Wait, not sometimes. They've been dreaming about retirement. I'm dreaming about retirement. You're dreaming. We're all dreaming about retirement. But then when it gets close, Lauren, all of a sudden it kind of sneaks up on people.
It really feels like it does sneak up. I mean, you could be thinking about retiring for the last 10 years, but 10 years out from retirement still feels like it's a lifetime away. But now you're 2 years away from retirement, and the pressures of all of these retirement decisions really start to feel it. What do you do with your income plan? And the number one question that most people have is, how do I bring all of these things together? Because when you were working, you were just primarily focused on working, building your career and all the life stuff that happens with raising kids and all that kind of stuff. And then you put money aside for this later time down the road. Well, now this is the later time down the road. You need to start figuring out how to take this money out, which is a completely different equation than when you were putting money in.
And the thing about this retirement kind of ticking time bomb is sometimes you get to retire when you want to. That's best case scenario. But other times, Haley, people are forced into retirement.
They are, and we see this a lot. In fact, I met with a couple last week, and she has been just so worrisome because they're going through a round of layoffs at her work. And so it's in her plan to always retire at 63 and a half and then take that COBRA coverage to 65. That's what she's mapped out for the longest time. And then now she's fearful that she could lose her job. So what we did last week is we just showed her, okay, well, what if you can't go to work tomorrow? What does it look like financially in your plan? And after we showed her the outcome, she realized, hey, this plan works either way, whether I can't go into work tomorrow or whether I get to keep my original retirement date at 63 and a half. It works both ways. And now she can sleep with peace at night knowing that financially she's okay to retire.
And what a great feeling for her. So she's done the work. She's put together the retirement plan with you and the retirement planners here. But what about the people watching, Lauren, that haven't put together a plan and they're kind of feeling this retirement time bomb?
Yeah, I would say you're not alone. In fact, 64% of people go into retirement without a written plan. So you are not alone, but you don't want to be a part of that group. You want to be a part of 36% of people who have a written, customized plan going to retirement. So when your plans do change, you can refer back to what your plan says, and it's easily revamped. It's easier to pivot when you already have a foundational plan in place, because when plans change, not every aspect of your plan changes. So you have a whole bunch of your plan that is still solid, it still works. We're just making a change over here. We're making a change over here, and then you get to see the short-term impact of those changes, the long-term impact of the changes, and that oftentimes is the result. The example that you gave, she came in really concerned. 63 and a half was her plan, but now that plan changed. And then once she got to see the pivot of the plan, how her different elements of the plan changed with her new lifestyle change, now she's much more relaxed, comfortable, and most importantly, confident.
And if retirement is sneaking up on you, or you feel it sneaking up on you, you probably have a lot of questions, maybe more questions than answers. And one of the big ones is, do I have enough money? So again, if you've already put together a plan, you can answer that a little bit easier. So how do people get to that where they can answer that question?
Well, I think what's really important is to understand, what does it cost to afford the lifestyle that you want in retirement? Because understanding your expenses is going to help us derive the income that you need so that you can have the retirement lifestyle that you want. And often people are overlooking or underestimating those expenses because for so long you've been getting a paycheck coming in every single week or every 2 weeks, and you never really had to budget your expenses. But once you go to retire, it's going to look much different. And that's when you really want to get a true sense of understanding of how much is this going to cost, not just for those fixed expenses, but for the fun in retirement too.
Talk about changes in plans, even for those who have their expense level really dialed in. Changes in the economic environment can cause changes to people's plans. Recently, I met with an individual. They were planning on spending $6,000 a month when we put this plan together. Well, now, with inflationary increases, when we visited recently, he said, well, maybe $12,000 a month is what it's going to take. Now, most changes aren't that significant from an expense standpoint, but he got to see what does it look like if he's not spending $6,000 a month, but he's spending $12,000 a month. And then from there, he can make some really pivotal decisions on what his spend looks like and how that's going to impact his overall resources as he goes throughout retirement.
And that leads to the next question that people people want to answer if they have to make retirement decisions fast, and that is, will I be able to sustain my current lifestyle? You kind of just spoke to it. You have to think about inflation in order to plan for that. The next thing you have to think about, Haley, is taxes.
Yeah, taxes are one of the most often overlooked costs to anyone's retirement. And the reason why is because when people go to retire, they assume that they're going to drop down into this lower income tax bracket. And the logic makes sense, right? Because we no longer have a paycheck, our taxable income's less, and so now we're going to drop into this lower tax bracket. However, that's not the case for everyone, and it may just only be for a short period of time, especially if you've saved and saved and saved in these pre-tax vehicles that you've never paid taxes on before. And the reason why is because there's this sneaky tax ticking time bomb that's set to go off at the age of 73. For some folks, it's 75 based on your date of birth. But for this case, we're going to say it's 73. And that sneaky tax time bomb is called required minimum distributions, otherwise known as RMDs. And what an RMD is when the IRS forces you to start distributing income out of these pre-tax accounts so that they can get their taxes. And so a lot of times when we meet with our families, we start planning for these RMDs right away as we start planning their retirement. And the reason why is because what we find is that people just are just set to go on autopilot. This is a real life example. And for privacy reasons, I'm going to call them Terry and Lynn. But Terry and Lynn, they came to meet with us not too long ago. And they were so excited for retirement because they were going to just live off their pension, their Social Security. They had their income accounted for, and they've done a great job saving underneath their 401k plans at work, where they amassed over $1 million of retirement savings that they were just going to use for fun or for those one-off expenses. And so with Terry and Lynn, if we just let them go on autopilot, what we showed them is that if they just live off the Social Security and the pension, they stay in that lower tax bracket for a period of time, at the age of 73, that tax time bomb is going to go off, and they're going to be forced to take out $40,000 or more from required minimum distributions. And so when you stack $40,000 of taxable income on top of the Social Security and on top of the pension, that's now going to push them into a higher tax bracket at the 22% level. And so at this point on, it's so important to understand that we've lost control of our tax bracket here, because we can't turn off any of this income. We can't turn off Social Security. We're not going to turn off our pension, and we're forced to take these distributions. So from this point on out, we're going to be stuck in this higher tax bracket for the rest of our retirement. And if we add up the total retirement tax bill that they pay over the course of their lifetime, it's equivalent to about $640,000. Now, that's taxes paid on everything. That's not just the IRA. That's going to include the taxes on the Social Security, the pension, and everything. But that's a huge tax bill that you're owing to the IRS. And instead, what we recommended them doing is we recommended a simple strategy called Roth conversions. What a Roth conversion is when you shift pre-tax money over to the Roth and you pay the tax bill in the year that you do that. So for Terry and Lynn, we decided to fill up this lower tax bracket by converting $75,000 a year for the next 10 years, which means we are going to intentionally decide to pay more taxes up front over that next 10 years, but it's short-term pain for long-term gain, because look what happens. As they start converting over to the Roth IRA and building that tax-free wealth, their IRA balance starts to diminish. And so at the time that they turn 73, instead of having to take out $40,000 because of required minimum distributions, that IRA balance is almost cut in half, and so their RMDs have almost cut in half. Now they're only required to take out $19,000. So when we stack $19,000 on top of their Social Security income and their pension, that keeps them in this 12% marginal tax bracket for the rest of their retirement. It's at this point that they took back control of their tax bill. And if you add up the taxes that they owe over the course of their retirement in this scenario, that equates to about $460,000. Now, I'm not saying that's not painful. We still owe taxes, but if we can save $177,000 of taxes just because we implemented a few Roth conversions in a time period that it made the most sense, that's more income that you get to keep in your pocket and that you get to spend for your own needs versus just handing it over to the IRS. And that is why we say that it's not always about what you save. It's about what you get to keep.
I feel like there's a whole lot of jaws that need to be picked up from the floor right now, because there's so much that you just went through that was probably brand new and surprising for so many people. First of all, Terry and Lynn did a great job of saving. They have $1 million in their pre-tax IRA, and that is phenomenal. And they are feeling confident. They're feeling really good going to retirement because they've amassed more than what most people have. But that retirement time bomb did creep into them. And what they realized is if they project out over the course of their retirement, they're going to pay over $600,000 in retirement taxes. So that $1 million they quickly realize is not all theirs. They have to share quite a bit of that with the IRS. But then you showed them how they're still going to pay a lot of taxes, even with tax planning, but they can save six figures, potentially $170,000. I mean, that's $170,000 that now they get to keep, they get to spend in their lifestyle and or pass on to their kids. And all of this just helps them accomplish what they're trying to accomplish in a much easier and more efficient way.
What would you do with an extra $177,000 in retirement? It's a powerful amount of money. We'll continue talking about that strategy that Haley just covered and tell you how you can learn more when we answer questions from our online Journey to Retirement workshop. Your journey, your questions next. Welcome back to Retiring Today. I'm Molly Nelson here with Lauren Merkel and Haley Gutchenrider. It's time to answer questions that we've received recently during our online Journey to Retirement workshop and a segment we call Your Journey, Your Questions. Here's a question we got recently. Is there any benefit to converting pre-tax 401k to Roth IRA versus doing an in-plan conversion to Roth 401k, Lauren?
This goes really well with the board example that Haley gave, talking about Roth conversions. So I'm glad she's thinking about Roth conversions. So the question is, should we convert within the plan, or do we take the money out of the 401k plan and convert to an IRA? If your plan does not allow you to take the money out of the plan while you're working, then that could be the only option you have to convert. So that could be a benefit. If it makes sense from a tax standpoint and you don't have money underneath an IRA to convert to an IRA, convert it from your 401k plan to the Roth 401k plan. You just want to make sure that your plan offers the Roth 401k and conversions, and then you can do that. If you're under the age of 59 and a half and you convert, you do not want to withhold taxes. You want to pay those taxes out of pocket. Otherwise, you would have a 10% federal penalty on the amount that was withheld. So you do have to be very careful. Typically, converting from an IRA or having your money underneath an IRA as opposed to a 401k plan can offer many benefits. Control, you can invest in just about anything you want to underneath an IRA as opposed to being limited with your investment options underneath the 401k. But you do want to consider the advantages and disadvantages of having your money in the 401k versus the IRA, and then do what's applicable based on the options that you have.
Yeah, and so Lauren, just to be clear, so converting in the plan or converting outside the plan, the tax scenario, the tax standpoint, it's the same. So it's 6 to 1, half the dozen to the other. But the nuances about converting inside a plan is where you're going to be a little bit more limited, because in conversion plans only allow you to do one a year. So you got to get that conversion right, and you only got once to do it. If you're converting outside the plan, you could do as many conversions throughout the year. And so you can be a lot more intentional. Sometimes families don't know exactly what their income is going to look like. So we may do a conversion at the beginning of the year, and then we'll circle back at the end of the year to fill up whatever's remaining in that tax bracket. So you can be a lot more intentional when you are converting outside the plan. Also, if you're converting outside the plan, you are allowed to withhold taxes. Unlike converting inside a plan, you can't withhold taxes on that conversion. So you are going to be liable for that tax bill when you go file up in the spring.
And this question came in during our online Journey to Retirement workshop. And Lauren, I have to imagine that the question came in when John and Sue, the hypothetical couple in the workshop, were doing just that. They were doing a Roth conversion.
Part of that workshop is to show how John and Sue implement tax planning strategies, one of those of which is a Roth conversion. They end up saving over $100,000 off of their retirement tax bill. And what we were demonstrating in the workshop is how did they do the Roth conversions from their pre-tax monies that they've saved. And so, yeah, I'm sure that came from that, because they said, John and Sue can save over $100,000 in taxes. How do I do that? And they may not have that ability to do the IRA conversion. So if it makes sense from a tax standpoint and you have that ability to do it within the 401k, then go for it. It's just nice that they have those options now, because even 5 years ago, most people didn't have the Roth 401k conversion option available to them underneath the employer plan.
More to talk about if retirement is sneaking up on you next. Welcome back to Retiring Today. I'm Molly Nelson here with Lauren Merkel and Haley Gutchenreiter. We're talking about retirement sneaking up on you. It can kind of feel like a retirement time bomb. You have to make decisions in a hurry. So let's talk about another one of the decisions you might have to make quickly. It's what do I do about health care once I retire? And Lauren, people do have options they can look at.
And this does sneak up on a lot of people for many reasons. In the economic environment we're in right now, your plan, as we were talking about earlier, doesn't always come to fruition. You might have to retire sooner than what you wanted, which means you might end up retiring prior to Medicare age 65. Now we need this gap insurance to cover you from age 63 to 65 if that's when you retire. What does that look like? Because the healthcare environment is constantly changing. There's a lot of options out there. Maybe it's your COBRA insurance, maybe it's your open healthcare market, maybe it's the Affordable Care Act. And then of course, once you get to Medicare age, now there's a whole slew of options that you have to weed through to identify what's going to be the best from a Medicare standpoint. And then once you make that election with Medicare at age 65, you have to revisit that at age 66 and age 60. Every year you have to revisit what that option is. So we want to make sure we're prepared for the original decision, but then we're in a good place to make changes as we need to make changes.
And also knowing that what you do from an income standpoint is going to impact what you pay for healthcare. So knowing the decisions that we make as a part of your income plan could be directly impactful to what you're going to pay in healthcare, because a lot of times premiums are based on your income. So if you're going to get health insurance from the open marketplace, well, they're going to look at your income and see what premiums you're going to owe based on how much income you get each year.
And I can't talk about Medicare without mentioning someone, you guys. It's our director of Medicare, Anna Marie Morrow. There she is. Look at that smiling face. She helps people make these decisions. She helps them not only at Medicare age, helps them elect Medicare and then talk about supplements, but if you want to retire before you're Medicare eligible, she helps people with COBRA and the open market and the Affordable Care Act. We have to mention her because she works directly with you guys to make all of these decisions for people.
She does, because all the decisions that we make on each one of those other pillars of the Retire Secure roadmap will impact that Medicare healthcare decision. So it's nice to have her working side by side here in the office on behalf of the families and individuals we serve to make sure that we get it all right and it's all working together. It's like a recipe. If you're cooking your favorite whatever, let's call it a loaf of bread, there is a recipe that you have to follow, otherwise things can get off. The same with a retirement plan.
You've been making a lot of loaves of bread?
No, I certainly have.
Okay, all right, let's move on. We'll be waiting for that to come to the office, a freshly baked loaf of bread.
I don't think I'm going to eat it.
I'll work on it. I'll work on it over the weekend, and maybe Monday morning there'll be a fresh loaf of bread for you.
All right, retirement is sneaking up on you, and you have to make retirement decisions quickly. Let's look at another question that you may want answered. It's question number 4. Do I have to elect Social Security? This is a big question.
You don't have to, and there's actually a lot of options when it comes to electing Social Security. So it's so important to sit down with the planner and decide what's the best option for you. And boy, do we have a great retirement workshop that you can actually join our hypothetical couple, John and Sue, to see how they go about electing their Social Security decisions.
And in that workshop, we show how John and Sue weed through the up to 81 different options that they have, and they settle on one of those options, and it saves them, or actually they have more income, about $93,000 more from their maximum decision versus their least decision. And then we show how they incorporate that $93,000 extra income into their plan to accomplish their goals. Because one of the things you'll take away from the workshop is John and Sue have some pretty specific goals. They have some pretty specific legacy goals. They got 2 kids. They want to leave a meaningful legacy. They want to have some fun. John really likes golf. Sue really wants to volunteer more now that she has more time. All of these goals can be accomplished through their plan, and $93,000 just from Social Security certainly helps them on their way.
And I assume if you have to make retirement decisions fast, whether it's snuck up on you and you're retiring because you want to or because you've been forced to retire for some reason, I think sometimes people probably think, I'm retiring, I have to elect. They happen simultaneously, but this workshop will show people that there's a combination of ways to do this.
Yeah, the workshop's going to show you that there is a lot of different options that you have when it comes to Social Security, and so you get to work through some of those different strategies that you may not otherwise know of. Often people think of Social Security as a siloed decision. They're just looking at the benefit of what it's going to be at 62 versus age 70, and they're just making a decision based on that information. But when you put that information as a part of all of the other planning components, then you get to see how making that decision impacts your investments, or how making that decision impacts their income. And when you put that decision along with everything else, you're going to come out to have the best optimal retirement that you can have.
And though John and Sue are a couple, the online Journey to Retirement workshop applies to singles as well.
Yes, that's right. Single people do retire too, which means single people need to have a retirement plan. In fact, if you're single, you might actually need a retirement plan more than somebody who's married, because you have you. If you're married, you have a team member that can help you through all of this. And especially when we're talking about legacy plans, when you pass away as a single individual, whatever you have in place, that's it. There's nobody else there who can revise it. Your decisions, whatever you have in place, now becomes permanent. So you need to make sure that you have income to take care of yourself in health, as well as when your health may not be as good, pay for the long-term care. And then also, when the last day does come, that's final. Everything is going to be as you put in place.
Yeah, and a lot of these decisions that you're hearing Lauren and Haley talk about, they're really outlined very well in the online Journey to Retirement workshop. You'll get a sense of, again, whether you're married or not, what decisions lie ahead. And Haley, who is a really good candidate to go ahead and sign up for this online Journey to Retirement workshop?
If you're 57 and older, you are a perfect candidate. And if you're somebody who just wants to get this right on the first time and have confidence going into retirement, this is a perfect workshop for you, because you get to finally start to see how all of these retirement decisions impact one another. And also you get to do this at the comfort of your own home. So you can take notes, you can ask questions, and you can just get an experience of really what it means to have a retirement plan.
Yeah, so whether you feel like retirement is sneaking up on you or you're ready to start planning now, what you need to do is take the first step. Go to retirewithmerkel.com and sign up for a time and date that works for you. This is Retiring Today, and we thank you for watching.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, click here for more fun and exciting content. And don't forget to subscribe to join a community of other like-minded individuals who are also exploring fun and creative retirement strategies.